Hey everyone, so today I want to do something a bit different, right? Rather than the usual teardowns, I wanted to give you kind of like an over-the-shoulder tutorial kind of thing, where I basically write my daily newsletter from scratch and I actually go over the process because that's something that a lot of people asked. So I wanted to kind of give you an overview. So let's take a look at the process. So first things first, for people who don't know, I write a daily newsletter. This is the landing page. You can sign up if you want. It's free and it's from Monday to Friday. So it's anything about copywriting, persuasion, psychology, decision making, design, conversion rate optimization. So if you're an e-commerce business or a SaaS business owner or a freelancer, there's something that you can probably learn and it doesn't take you more than 2 minutes a day. All right. So you can sign up here as mentioned, and I just launched my free ebook, which is the Alchemist's Journal, thought-provoking, weird yet magical ideas to increase conversions. And it's basically a collection, a curated collection of past emails that I sent out, plus some helpful exercises that you can follow. And also, there's a way for you to get in touch with me directly to get those exercises and homework reviewed personally. So, if you want to take advantage of that, just go ahead and sign up. And so, this is basically the newsletter, right? Let's look at some of the core concept behind how I work on this. So these are some kind of like, this is the workflow, right? So how I write a newsletter, and I'm around 120,000 words in a bit less than a year. Each newsletter is like 500, around 500 words. So that makes up the 120K. All right, first thing first, main and most important concept here to consider is the concept of production versus consumption, right? That's one of the goals that I set out for myself last year, and I've been trying to stick to it as best as I can because I realize we are plagued by a scarcity of attention, and I want to kind of veer the other way, right? So I want to be the one who produces rather than the one who consumes information and just get stuffed with material learning. I just want to create, right? Puts me in a different mindset, in a more active role, helps with my business, helps with the learning. So I think it's a much more productive frame of mind to put yourself in. And writing this newsletter helps me. Okay. So this is the first concept. The second concept, change the frame. So from writing to share to writing to learn. One of the most important things that I try to keep in mind here whenever I write my newsletter is that I just don't want to project information to other people. What I'm doing is first and foremost for myself. It's a learning process for myself, and we'll see some of the core concept in a bit. But it's mostly just another way for me to learn, to absorb concepts, to absorb the information that I take in throughout the day, rather than just wanting to throw up information, right, to people. I think the best way that we can teach others is if we first learn ourselves. So I first want to learn and get better for myself. And at the same time, in this case, I also share, but the frame of mind that I use to approach all my writing, it's from a perspective of learning myself first. All right. The process starts basically constantly with an idea dump in my second brain. If you're not familiar with the concept of a second brain, just look up for Tiago Forte and his website. He's got a course called Building a Second Brain, where basically it helps you categorize, organize, and plan your thoughts, your ideas in a structured way that helps you save energy, right? Rather than consuming a lot of energy thinking, where do I have to, how can I remember this thing? Basically, it's using technology to help you remember almost everything, learn better, faster, more effectively, right? So this idea of the second brain and idea dump. How it works? Basically, anytime that I have an idea, whether I'm listening to an audiobook, whether I'm reading a book, or whether I'm watching TV, whether I'm in a conversation with someone, what I'm doing, it's basically I take notes, right? Take notes in different formats, different platforms. I usually have my 2-3 platforms that I like to use based on the context. And as I mentioned here, this idea dump needs to work in all formats and all types of contexts. So, for example, one of the main ones that I use is just Quick Notes, Apple Quick Notes, using the Notes app. It's easy because it's fast. On my phone, I can just click a button and it opens up a quick note that I can add. So whether it's a podcast, for example, like we have here, it's super cool because you can record your screen on the iPhone and then send the screen recording to the Apple Notes. So you can see
polar opposite of who you are.
And it records the exact audio, video on the phone, and you can listen to it right away. It's super fast.
People watch a paper.
And I guess this is a thing with the latest update, but is awesome. Or whether it's just a screenshot, for example, here we have a screenshot, or just a random note that I write, something from a book. Maybe I add a link, or maybe I'm browsing and I want to save a link. So like in this case, so you can see different formats, different contexts, but the idea always ends up here. Another way is that I use a to read later app. In this case, I have the Readwise Read Later app. Here I save articles that I want to read later, and everything is synchronized. So if I read this post here and I highlight this piece, basically this piece here ends up in my to-do note-taking app of choice, which it's Rome Research, this app here. Where I basically plan my whole day, my week, kind of my life, I would say, because it's basically my operating system here. Every day I get here, I generate the daily template. I have everything that I need to do for the day, including the Conversion Alchemy Journal, as you can see here, which is my daily email. And all those notes, for example, highlights from books, Kindle, Apple Books, or the Readwise Read Later app, all those notes end up being saved here. So for example, I can search for almost anything. I don't know, copy, right? And you'll see that I have all sorts of different notes that are all collected from my second brain, basically. And this is the part about idea dump, all right? So it's important to have a system where you can actually dump ideas rather than having them stuck in your mind and forgetting about them, so that you can use them later. And that's the important part, using the ideas. It's not only important to save them, but actually using them. The next thing, we have the calendar, right? So it's important to have stuff booked out in your calendar. This is what my calendar looks like. Pretty busy days. I use different systems, which I'm not going to dive super deep into this video, but it's important that the daily writing content block is set for every day. So Monday to Friday, we have the block, right? I'm also testing out with my assistant for publishing. So we're working on it, but it's important to have this block right here, right? So it's taking me, for example, this morning, it's taking me a bit longer because I'm using this writing time to also record this YouTube video, which makes sense. It's an investment, so it's good for today. Next step, use IdeaSex, right? So IdeaSex is a concept that was popularized by James Altucher, and the juice of it, it's basically that all the ideas that you have collected, so this is my quick notes folder, all the ideas that you have collected could work together potentially, right? It's up to you to to connect the dots and to come up with an interesting aspect that you can talk about. So for example, for today, let's give you an example, right? Let's say that I'm about to write my daily newsletter today. Okay, I'm looking at my notes, and you can see that I have from this Sunday back to October, so a lot of notes that I still have to use. What I'll do every morning, if I don't really already have an idea of what I want to write, I just go into this folder here or in Rome, and I just look up for interesting ideas that resonate with what I'm working on now, right? Because it needs to be fresh for me to be able to write about it. And so let's look, for example, one thing that I noticed that I wanted to write about because it's very relevant to what I'm thinking about now. It's this concept here, for example. So it's a concept. I haven't written who this is from, but I remember it. It's from Alex Hormozy. So more, better, new framework for making more money in a business, right? And I can remember the whole discussion, so that's why I didn't write more. It was pretty clear in my mind. So I would say that this is interesting for today. So now I edited the note so it went up on the top, but I usually just pin it, anything that's interesting. The other piece, I remember that it was something else by Alex Hormozy. This one, share stuff that's shareable, that gives status. This line here is pretty relevant. If you want to have a competitive advantage, have it be patience, because no one wants to copy it, right? And I want to actually connect this to the whole process of making something, of making more of something, making it better, and so on. So I want to also save this one, pin it, and then delete. And you can see now I have two ideas. What I want to do is use the concept of idea sex. So I'm going to have these two ideas have sex, right? and combine them into what I want to write about. So this is the concept of idea sex. A focused writing environment. As I mentioned, I use Rome for writing my newsletters. What I'll do is every single day. So I can show you, for example, for a new day, let's say Saturday, I don't have a day. I use templates daily. Boom, generates my template. And at the end of each day, I go in and fill it up with what I have to do tomorrow. So you can see that it always generates the Conversion Alchemy Journal template here. I just need to basically click on it, and it links to my whole repository of emails. So these are all the emails that I've written. I can expand on it and it shows, right? So what I'll do each day is just, for example, today, add a new one. Again, I have another template, journal. Today it's day 236. And this is my template where I can write. I can even get more focused if I want to. So clicking on this page to create its standalone page. And this is where I write. So nothing fancy, super clean environment. I find that it helps maintaining the focus. Same thing, I mentioned the templates. All right, so quick access needs to be quick, needs to be templated. Basically, the overall underlying concept here is to remove every single element of friction from the writing process. If you want to write, especially daily, it needs to be frictionless and focused. So let's move on. The other thing that I usually do is using timer. And one thing that I didn't mention, I actually forgot, I skipped it entirely. It's for these daily newsletter, in order to be able to stick with them, I started using constraints. I'm actually being a bit more flexible lately, but the way that I started and that I approach these emails is using these constraints. So every email, usually it doesn't contain image. It should be like a plain text email. I don't have to do any type of research unless it's just a quick Googling for something to fact check stuff, but no research. It's mostly about, as I mentioned, deep thinking. So I have an idea, I combine a couple ideas, and then I have to think deeply about those ideas in my own head. And that's going back to the concept of writing to learn, right? All of this helps me think better, helps me become a better writer. So it's all about deep thinking rather than just taking stuff that other people wrote and just expanding on it using research. For me, it's more of like a really introspective approach. Also, the other constraint is 500 words. So emails should be quite short. I went up to maximum 900, 1,000 sometimes, but very few times. It shouldn't be any external links except links to my own brand, which makes sense and readers don't mind at all because they appreciate the fact that it's a daily email. So they expect some kind of promotion in some way. And I also mention it on my landing page, so that's fine. All right, so these are the constraints. One of the constraints as well is time. I usually try to stick to maximum 30 minutes to write this newsletter. So I have super quick access to an app called Flow, which is just a timer. So I press Option S and you can see timer started. So you can actually see, for example, timer, show timer. This is the timer going. So I'll let this go. And that's when I basically start the writing process. I can quickly reset the timer, undo, pause the timer. And this is how it goes for the timer. Then when it comes to writing, the next step is just writing, no editing. So I'll just start typing whatever comes to mind without editing. Sometimes it's hard, so sometimes I go back. I'm guilty of that as well, but I'll try to be as ruthless as possible and move forward fast. Then it comes the editing. I reread the email, then I add the links, and then I just publish. So basically publishing for me means publishing on ConvertKit, which is my email platform. And I usually, the next step is taking the email and converting it into a tweet and a LinkedIn post, which is usually the same. And the process is quite seamless in the sense that once I create the Twitter post, Twitter thread, I will basically have to just schedule it on both Twitter and LinkedIn. And there are a few apps that help you do that. For Twitter only, you can use Typefully, which is the app here, or you can also use TypeShare, which works both for Twitter and LinkedIn at the same time, which I want to try and test out today since I'm working with my assistant to improve the flow. But this is basically how it goes. So let's see what I end up writing today. I'm going to start writing, start a timer now with these two ideas. Let's close this. I have these two ideas. I will write my daily email based on these two ideas that I found. Okay, so let's start the timer. Let's pause the video and I'll see you in a bit. And we are done. It took me exactly, let's see, started the timer at 30 minutes. We got 4 minutes left, so 26 minutes is the time that it took me to write this newsletter. We've got 590 words, which is pretty much on point. And this is basically how I combined these two ideas that I had, right? So the more, better, new framework for making more money. And also this quote here about patience from the same guy, Alex Hormozi. What I usually do for every one of these ideas is I don't delete them. So I save them in this used ideas folder, where I basically have every single idea that I used in the past, because you never know how they can be useful again, right? So I always keep them and save them. And let's close this. And this is basically the email. So how to make more money in any business, even in a recession. And basically what I've done was building a story. So starting out with using the concept of the recession, which is fresh in the minds of people, might be catchy, catch their attention, and using the concept of we often complicate stuff while there's a better, simpler framework. And I'm sharing this from Alex Hormozi, which is basically whenever you're thinking of improving anything, making more money, whether it's also improving conversions on your website, always think in terms of first, what can you do more of what's currently working, not reinventing the wheel. Can you improve something? And finally, can you add something on top of it? So this is kind of the basic framework. And then I basically dive into some examples, also when it comes to copy here. So improving copy, improving your offering, pricing strategy, and adding new services on top of what you're currently offering. So this is the simple email. At the end, I usually connect it to something that I'm offering at the moment or something that I just launched. In this case, I just launched my ebook, which you can actually see here. This is a quick preview of the ebook with a collection on emails. At the end of each chapter, you can find a recap with some homework and a way to get in touch with me to get the homework reviewed. And yeah, so it's pretty cool. Download it, check it out. So at the end of this email, I link again to the ebook since I launched it yesterday. I want it to be fresh in the minds of readers. And finally, the last thing they do for every email is I just copy paste a quote and a reflection. This doesn't cost me much because it's something that I do every morning for myself as part of my morning routine, morning ritual. So I just post it here because I think it's like a nice personal touch, a kind of a bit of a reflection for the day that readers might appreciate. And a lot of times I find that there's a link between this reflection and what I write because that's something that's bubbling in my mind. So this is pretty much the process, guys. Nothing complex, nothing out of the ordinary. I mean, it's kind of nerdy, but that's how I like it. And that's how I've been able to write 120,000 words in almost a year. So yeah, if you have any questions, pop it in the comments, subscribe, like, and keep an eye out for next videos. Cheers, guys.